Okay, so acacia trees, what do we know about them? Giraffes eat them. Giraffes have really, really long tongues. They're like, and they use those tongues to kind of get around the thorns and that are on acacia trees. But it's really cool because even if they get scratched on their tongues are antiseptic, which means the cuts heal really quick, so they don't really notice it anyway. And over here on the right, you can see some weaver birds' nests. And they put a whole bunch of nests on the tree so that none of their predators can tell which nest has the birds in it. Some of them are empty, and just a few of them have birds in them. So, unfortunately, there's been a lot of changes that the Maasai have to deal with. So, the government's been taking some land to make wildlife preserves. But what that means for the Maasai is that they don't have as much space to rotate their cattle, which means that they don't have the land to feed the cattle, which means they have less cattle, which also means that the wildlife around them has less space. So there's less wildlife, there's less cattle, there's less land, and it's making everything really difficult for them. So because of this, obviously their herds are shrinking, so they have to come up with other ways to do stuff. And one of the ways they've done this is farming. So they're starting to grow vegetables and other plants. And it's really cool. They're using irrigation to water the fields that have kind of been dried out and overgrazed by the animals. So that's neat. They've also got into beekeeping. So they make their own bee houses with hollowed out branches and they put them in trees. And then to get the bees to come to the house, they burn this plant that attracts the bees into the house. And then they use the honey. Oops, I went backwards instead of forwards. Another way that they're dealing with this is starting sort of an ecotourism industry in which people will come and pay them to see the wild animals. And the Maasai do a good job of making sure that they do this in a way that the animals aren't disturbed or anything. So Ninkuta and Baby Ramati, you know, they're teaching their kids the traditional ways that they grew up, but they're also learning new ways to do things because of what's happening in their environment. So we talked about this, the jumping dance, and that's the end. Thanks, guys.